Welcome to Community Cocktails with Kimberly, hosted by Kimberly Woodard, a realtor for nearly 20 years with Ebby Halliday Realtors. Join her every first and third Wednesday of the month as she meets with the top community influencers to help you get to know the area you want to call home. Don't just love your home, love your community. And now, your host, Kimberly Woodard.
Welcome, viewers, to this episode of Community Cocktails with Kimberly. This is such a treat for me to be able to give you guys this information today. I know after the holidays, and by the way, Happy New Year, you start to think, maybe the house that you're in is too big, or maybe I want to capitalize on this great seller's market. So today I have my team here and that is going to help you with some tips if you're thinking about selling your home. It's not as easy as just plopping that sign in the yard, which everyone thinks is just I'm gonna put my sign in the yard and I'm gonna get the top dollar for the marketplace. No, not necessarily. We've got some stuff that we need to get done and get preparation so we can get you that top dollar. So let me introduce my guest today. I've got Jeff Jannasch, and he's with Town Square Financial. I have Jeff Price here with Chicago Title, I have Don Brown with Snapdragon Staging. So welcome, guys.
All right. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let's talk and let's start with Jeff.
Right.
So the first question that a lot of my clients, they're really wanting to capitalize on this marketplace.
Right.
But they're like, okay, I can maybe sell my house this weekend.
Right.
Where do I go?
Right. There's no houses, right?
Right. And they're scared to do that before having some place to go. Maybe, in most markets, and, unless they're maybe decided to take a leap and do a whole, outside the area direction. So let's talk about these options.
Yeah, no, that's, I think a lot of our clients right now are having that same dilemma. And so really what, I talk to the clients are the different options that they have, which is not selling their property, prior to buying another property. And, and the first thing they got to find out is, can they qualify for both properties?
Right.
And generally what I would say is most people can qualify for more than they think, right?
Right.
They ever said, I can't afford, two payments at the same time.
Right.
I can't afford that. And there's no way I'm going to qualify for that.
Right.
Well, so we start breaking down the numbers to them. And most of the time they can qualify. In most cases, we're finding that out, and if they can't, we do like bridge loans.
Yes.
So bridge loans is a big factor whenever you have to do a bridge loan to sell your house, or when you're not selling your house ahead of time. So the bridge loan allows you to get the financing, the equity out of that house ahead of time, and until you find the property you want to buy. You can have that set up as a loan, and you can close at the same time on those two properties. So that's a big one, and it's a very expensive option. So I always talk to people like, okay, that's going to be your option C.
Right.
So then we're going to go to different options and see what else we can do as far as getting you qualified prior to having to get a bridge loan, if you will.
Right.
So one that we always do is we talk to them about, once we find out they can qualify, is doing like less down on the new home, right? Because everybody's trying to pull the equity out of their current house, right? And and you can't always, there's different ways you could pull them out. You can do home equity lines of credit, and you need to talk to us first if you're going to do that, because then you got to qualify with that home equity line of credit. So that's one way. And putting less down, everybody gets concerned about their mortgage payments, right? Like now I'm buying this other house, and now my payment's going to be way too expensive for what I really want it to be. But there are options on that. We have what's called a recast loan. So recast is a big one. So after you sell your property, you moved into this new house, your mortgage payment's higher than you want it to be, you sold your home, and now you can take that equity from the sale and apply it to your current mortgage, and they'll reset your payments.
I just talked to a client about that option because that was what they were looking at. They had, heard about it.
Right.
And we were discussing that as an option for them, especially they're, not local, but they're coming from out of state.
Right.
They don't want to sell. Their market's good too.
Sure. Right.
But they're like, we want to make sure we have a place to go to before we get that house sold. So
yeah, and a lot of times what we're finding out is I'll start talking to clients about putting less down and their mortgage payment's been a little higher, but I start evaluating and I tell them to talk to their financial advisors if they have one. But a lot of times they'll end up just keeping the less down on the property. They'll go pay off all their bills. Like they'll pay off cars and credit cards and all their debt. And then they're in a better position anyway. And they end up having a lot less payment anyway, when it's all said and done. So they don't always apply the recast loan. They'll just go ahead and take it, even if it has a little bit of PMI, the private mortgage insurance, which everybody assumes is going to be a lot of money per month. And it's usually not nearly as bad as you think. And that's what I would tell people is let's talk, let's kind of go through the different options. One thing too, I always like to bring this up too when you're doing that, is if you have 401k, you can do a hardship on your 401k, taking out 50% of your balance up to $50,000 for a home, even if you own a home now.
Oh, wow.
So that's always a good option. That's a lot better option than getting a bridge loan because you're paying yourself back interest, right? There's no cost. So
very nice. Well, those are great tips.
There we go.
Definitely things for people to consider. Look at either your options, and maybe, if you are a little nervous, this is the time to kind of buckle up anyways. When you're going to buy a home, you should be, not making these big expenditures anyways.
Right. You're kind of hold me first, please.
But no, that's great. Well, Jeff, prize. Jeff P.
Two Jeffs on one couch.
We had to get us both on one couch.
That's right.
So, people don't really consider the title end. They just think, okay, that's where I go to, sign my paperwork, when it's ready to close. They don't really think of all the other things that you guys do.
Sure.
And why it's important for, the preparation of the sale, of what they need to make sure ducks are in a row.
Right.
So many times, people have paid off, especially in this market where we've got people who maybe it's an empty nester. They've lived in their home. I have one right now, but they lived in the home for 30 years. They're original owners. Maybe they have the houses paid off to make sure that lien is filed.
Correct.
And how many times do we see that it's not been not recorded?
Yeah, we see it. The interesting thing is that once you do pay it off, the bank's going to do one of two things. And that's, they're going to mail the lien release directly to the county for filing, or they're going to mail it to the homeowner with a letter that says, upon receipt of this document, it needs to be filed. So either take it to the title company or take it to filing directly. And you'd be surprised how many people, when we do file a lien, when we do find a lien on a free and clear property, that have the letter directly from the bank, and maybe they've been sitting on it for 6 or 10 years, and it clearly says, take this for filing. Turns out it's a real easy fix because we can just take that original, confirm with the bank that it was paid off, and then we'll simply file that with the county and take care of it.
Wow.
So it can be simple if you do keep your records, keep all your paperwork. The most popular document that we get calls about are surveys.
Yes.
And if you went through a closing process, you had to acknowledge a survey.
Right.
That's part of the stack that we present in every closing. So people call and say, I never got a survey, but if you got your documents from when you sign, the survey's buried in there.
Yes.
In today's market, we'll accept surveys as long as they're legible and as long as no structural changes have been made. So it doesn't matter the age. People think that a 5-year-old survey versus a 20-year survey, if the structure is the same and there haven't been any structural changes, then the survey's still good. So
wow.
Sometimes you can call your lender for that survey as well.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you can call me, and if I was your realtor,
That's right.
have it in my database. And I have pulled numerous surveys for people, just even when they have decided to even do structural changes. They've been in the house for some years, and you may be thinking of adding a pool or doing some landscaping changes, because those are all things that those services will require a copy of the survey on it. So, but the other thing is, in this marketplace, HOA docs.
HOA docs are big now.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so let's, why it's important to go ahead and order. And we used to always just wait. We get the contract executed, and then we ordered the HOA docs. Why is it so important nowadays?
Well, with option periods now, next to nothing.
Right.
So where we used to see 7 or 10 day option periods or even longer, now we're seeing close to zero.
Right.
People, in order to get the house under contract, are saying, hey, we're going to buy it with no option period. So to have the HOA docs available where that is part of the contract in regards to how long it takes for us to get the documents and deliver them to the buyer, it's very convenient and easy just to go ahead and order them maybe when the house is being signed up for the listing.
Yeah.
That way they're ready once it does go under contract. These management companies take anywhere from 7 to 10 days to generate the package. We will prepay for that service for the client, and then they just reimburse us as part of the closing. But to have the documents available right after it goes under contract is a very positive route for the buyer. That way, if they do object to anything within those documents, it's very early on in the process.
Right. And it's also a benefit for the seller, because for the seller, it eliminates that buyer's number of days to get out of the contract too.
Correct.
When we leave it where, maybe they had that 0 option or 2-day option, but then they still had 10 to 15 days for, to get the docs. Once they receive it, they only have 3 days. So it just cuts down that timeline.
Sure.
So,
and people, or a seller may think that, hey, I have all the HOA documents.
Right.
I just bought this house 2 years ago. Well, we understand that, but the management companies unfortunately make us order a whole new package that will provide us with a statement of account. And the other really crucial part about that are violations. So a buyer will not know if the seller is under violation with the management company. That resale certificate, that's going to tell us what's going on with that specific property in the HOA.
Definitely. And I've seen some where there were violations, and the homeowner's like, what?
Right.
So, but all got cleared. But you have to go through a process. Is the whole thing. There's a process for everything. So.
Yeah, and the buyer is going to assume those violations. So if they're not addressed prior to closing, they're buying the house with damaged fence that doesn't meet the bylaws of the HOA.
Yep.
Yeah.
So additional cost for that buyer.
That's right.
So also, if you're in a trust,
correct.
Let's talk about trusts and LLCs. If maybe you're that seller that has put your home in that.
So very common today that we're seeing properties that aren't vested in title individually. They're now being vested in an LLC or a corporation or even a trust agreement.
Right.
The biggest challenge when that is vested in that fashion is getting those documents from the seller that support that they are the owner of the entity. It's surprising how many people have their property titled in an entity, but yet have no formation documents to support that Kimberly is the trustee of the trust.
Right.
And so that can cause a delay if you're not organized or prepared with those documents, that we have to have those in order to review to make sure that you are the proper signer on behalf of those entities.
Oh, definitely.
Most of the time they haven't seen them in years, right?
Correct.
Look at those documents in years. They're like, oh yeah, I got a trust and we're good. Yeah, that's why I get with him, please.
That's right.
Yes.
Because then we'll have to make sure that, that entity is in good standing with the state. And the other crucial part of that is the bank account tied to the proceeds of the sale have to match the entity where the property is vested.
Yep.
And just because you're the trustee of the trust doesn't mean that that bank account is part of the trust.
Right.
And so our money has to go to the trust account.
Yep. And that's a good point to say, because I have seen that happen where at the last minute they're like, what? And they're all freaked out. So things have to, they have to get some things done in a panic. And of course they're stressed about that. But if, again, it goes to preparing, getting everything in your ducks in a row before you put that house up on the marketplace.
Right.
So, well, now, to our crucial part, another crucial part, everyone thinks, Dawn, now in this market, I don't have to get my house ready. It can look lived in. like quite lived it. I will say, when you can ask my boys, my house is always has to be show ready. It is like I go into a panic mode if I see laundry on the dining room table, even for an hour. I'm like, what if someone came by the house? So yes, that's now everyone knows my secrets. But it is, people think, it doesn't matter. I don't have to get the house ready. We'll just leave it as is. People can just see it. They're going to want to buy it.
No, that's not really the truth. I have noticed when I go online and look at homes that they've done that too. They just put up pictures and you see people's toothbrushes and, dirty towels on the floor and everything. And for me, I would be, no, I don't want that house because they didn't take care of their house.
Right.
So me as a stager and a designer, I would go in and say, just clean everything up. Right. If you want to have your toothbrush or whatever ready because you haven't moved out yet, put it in a basket, put it underneath the sink, everything you use. And just make it look nice and neat and clean at all times because people are going to walk in and they want to see themselves living in that home.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And if you have your house in disarray, they might say, oh, they didn't take care of it, so I can give you a lower amount, on price on the house.
Agree.
And I think that's it's kind of crazy.
Well, especially in this marketplace, I tell people, think that you're preparing your house for a party.
Right.
How many times do we, we're going to host a party and we're doing all those, honey-do items that we've been putting
Right.
Every time.
Last minute. Everything last
It's
minute.
like, we're going to paint the walls.
Yeah.
A picture.
And you're doing all those kind of things that because you want your friends and family to, think that, wow, this is, a beautiful home. Well, that's what you should be doing, for this marketplace.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
In order to capture, those buyers. So.
Oh, and you want to get the most for your home.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And I think that if you stage and make it look nice, you will get what your home is worth.
Yeah.
When you put it on the
You
market.
eliminate buyers if you don't, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be, let's talk about staging. Sometimes people, get so nervous about staging. They think it's not decorating. It's enhancing the house.
It's enhancing the house. So it's not going and buying that $1 million painting.
Right.
It's making your home look comfortable, looked like someone would want to move in right away, and making it look nice, clean, and neat.
Right.
Take down all of your, I know this sounds really bad, but take down all of your personal items because quite frankly, people don't want to come in and see, your marriage picture of 20 years ago or, your kids. They want to just go in and see something nice, neat, and clean that they can say, hey, I can put my stuff here, my stuff on the wall and make it look nice and clean.
Yeah, I agree. I always also say, people have, everyone has their things that they collect.
Right.
Maybe downsize your collections, downsize some of your things that you have, around. Opening those spaces, you're going to be moving pretty quick, probably.
Put it in storage. Just put it in storage.
Yes.
Store it away. And
Yep. Or it's a good time to get. Yep. Yes, it is. It is. Yes. If you were thinking that you need to get rid of things, this is the perfect time to do that.
Exactly.
But I agree. Going in, it's a different. When I open the door and a house is all tidy, whether it's been updated or not, it's going to have a different vibe than I walk in. And it could be the most, greatest house, updated to the T, but if it looks like it's been lived in and I see, everything, clothes all over the place, the kitchen countertops, you can't see what the house has.
Right.
And so then you're like, oh, did I walk in? Were they expecting me? It's, it is amazing. A different vibe, which in turn brings your buyers that are coming in it looking, oh, maybe they're turned off. Maybe they're just turned off because they feel like, the house wasn't taken care of
Right,
because
right.
they didn't care enough to get the house ready for you to come in.
It's such an emotional transaction, an
Yes.
emotional
Yeah.
response when you walk in. I mean, I can't even imagine, when a place is bad. I mean, you're going to focus on the
Right.
negatives when you walk in, right? I
Right.
mean, versus the positives, having someone who's
Right.
professional says, hey, here's how you need to do it. Here's how you need to put everything and
Yeah.
do it that way. I would for sure think you would get maximize your seller.
Well, it's also the awkward places in your home.
Yes.
So if we can stage the awkward places and make it look like, oh, that's a really cute idea, I could do that,
Yeah.
then the house isn't that awkward.
Right.
But if you have nothing there, or if you have a bunch of clutter, people can't see that.
I agree. Then I've seen it where we've restaged family rooms
Oh, yeah.
where, people are like, this is an awkward layout. I've never been able to, we go in, we stage it, and they're like, oh, I've been living in this house for 10 years.
And I didn't know that. Exactly.
And so it makes it such an appearance. And then we've taken out, that negative out. Always take the negatives out of the house is what I always say. We don't want a buyer to ever think negatives. Everything should be a positive.
Right.
So no. So it is, again, it's important to still in this marketplace, get the house ready,
Right.
have a stager come in, give you tips, give you, ideas, go over, especially if there's those rooms that you just have been like, oh, I've just stacked things in here because I didn't know what to do with the space. Well, guess what? The buyer's not going to know what to do with that space. So let's give them an idea for that
Right.
space.
Absolutely.
So, well, I have learned so much myself. I think everyone has, and I know my viewers out there, you guys have definitely probably learned a lot. And, now the next step after we've done all this is for me to put the house on the market. Ready to go.
Yeah.
But if you're, I've got everyone's contact information here to contact them if you guys have any questions. And of course, I'd love to be of service to you as well. So cheers to everyone. Cheers to this 2022 year.
Yeah.
There we go. Eye contact.
2022.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to contact Kimberly with your real estate needs, you can reach her at kimberlywoodard.ebby.com. We hope you enjoyed our guest this week, and remember, don't just love your home, love your community.